Hello and welcome to Bobbin Talk. In this video, I will show you how to create a lace trim. In this particular case for a sleeve, but you could do this at a neckline, at a hem, you can do this anywhere you like. So we'll be working with lace and utilizing it as a trim. First, find a piece of lace that you like. So this is the original picture that I found. Try to find a piece that you can have a nice repeat or a piece that fits exactly in the shape that you want to fill with the lace. In my case, I want to put this as a hem trim. So I have something that repeats. I brought this piece in Photoshop and actually I cropped it only to these three pieces here, because here on the right side I see that there's a little bit of a dip, or it's going a little higher, so I just utilized these three pieces. And then I came into Photoshop and I deleted the background. Anywhere that I had black background seen through the little areas, I deleted that and created a PNG file that I can use in CLO, and I saved this file as a PNG. So now let's go to CLO. In CLO, I already have an avatar. Choose whatever you like depending on the project that you're working on, and then navigate to the folder wherever you have your lace trim. I created a separate folder that's called CLO Lace, and in that folder I have a variety of lace trims here, and I created a lace sleeve texture, which is the one that I'm going to use. And I also created a couple of more files here, a opacity file and a displacement file, and we'll add those to the maps to create a more textured, more dimensional effect. Make sure that you have your project open. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to go to a very simple garment with a sleeve. So I'm just going to pull up this female t-shirt. I'm going to add it to the workspace, and I will place the lace at the edge of her sleeve. Let's make this monochrome just for now. I will place the lace here around her sleeve. So I will need the 2D window and the particular pattern that I'm working on. I'm going to make it nice and large here. Next, I'm going to navigate to the folder where my lace is. If you haven't uploaded your folder to the library, come up here to the plus button, left click on that, and then select the place where you have that folder and just bring it into the library. Mine is under CLO Lace. I created a special folder for this, and here I have a variety of lace trims. For this one, I have labeled it lace trim, and you will notice that I have three different files here. One of them is called texture. That will be the file that I will bring in originally for creating the lace trim. I also created two more files called opacity and displacement, and I will utilize those files in the property editor to add them to the opacity and displacement map. First, let's start with the texture file. Right click on it and add it as a graphic, and then come to the 2D window, left click to place it. If you want to change the width, the height, this is a great time to do that, but you can also edit it once it's placed. So let's say I want to make this 4 inches so it's a nice and even number. I'm going to click OK, and it appears in your 2D window. I'm going to close the library here so I have a lot more space to work on my screen, and I'm also going to left click and drag a little bit so that I see mostly my 2D window. You can also come down to the bottom right and select just 2D window and work only in the 2D window for now. Once I have this, I can place it. So I want it to be right in the middle. So I'm going to align it with my middle line here. I can also bring it really close to the edge. Even if you go past the edge, we can change the pattern shape a little bit later. So no worries, you can still change that. For now, I am happy with this. If you have a particular shape with the lace and you just want to fill a cutout, that's fine. But for my purposes, I want to duplicate and make sure that I have this all along the whole sleeve. So I'm gonna Command C, Command V on a Apple computer, and I'm gonna bring it and place it naked. And I actually see that this doesn't reach quite till the end, so I'm gonna make my lace trim a little bit bigger. I'm gonna make sure that I am in the edit transform graphic. The tool appears and I'm gonna enlarge it slightly, and then I'm gonna copy and paste that, and I just want to make sure that I can go all the way to the edge, and then copy and paste one more time, and I see it that now it is reaching from edge to edge. Once you're happy with the placement, the next step is tracing around the line where you will have the seam and the stitching. So basically, where are you attaching the lace? Keep in mind that for this particular example, we have the fabric and then the lace hanging. So we want clear and see-through. If you just wanted to stitch the lace, you can create some kind of top stitching on top of this and give this some kind of a color, and that's it. We're done. If you just wanted to have this lace top stitched on top of the sleeve, then all you have to do is make sure that this particular pattern has whatever texture and color you like. For example, let's say if this is red, you can apply that color, make sure that the fabric is good, and then we can see that. In the 3D window, select textured surface and make sure that in the object browser you assign the fabric that you like. Once you apply that fabric, you can see that the lace sits on top of this fabric. And because I created a file with transparent background, you can see it showing through what the bottom fabric is. If you don't want to see these lines, it might be a better idea to create the repeat or the desired length in Photoshop so that when you bring this pattern, you don't see this connecting line here. That might be it. You might want to create some kind of a top stitching and call it a day. For this particular example, we're actually going to cut apart the sleeve top part from the lace and remove the fabric from the bottom area, or make the bottom fabric fully transparent so we're attaching just the lace. In order to do that, I need to work with the internal polygon line. If you like, you can actually leave this as a contrast color so you can see better. I'm gonna go just to 2D window. If it's easier for you to see where you need to cut the line, maybe it's a good idea to leave the contrast pattern. If not, you can come up here, make sure that you have the whole pattern selected, designate a different fabric. It's up to you. If you would like to work white on white, is a little difficult to see, so for now I'm just going to leave it red on white. It just makes it easier for me to see. So I'm going to close the object browser and the property editor. Make sure that you have the internal polygon line, shortcut G, and you can start cutting the line. Decide if you want to go above, right above the lace, which is a little difficult. I'm actually going to go right in here. I don't care for this particular edge up here, and I can actually leave it on the top part of the sleeve so I can see it. Start by left clicking, and you can zoom in a little bit if you want to see better. And red might not have been the best color, maybe yellow, blue maybe, but it would have been better because this line is red. Actually, I'm going to change that to blue. I'm going to open my object browser, property editor, and make sure that you're in this particular fabric. Instead of red, I'm going to put a light blue color. It'll make it easier for me to work on there with a red line. So again, make sure that you have the internal polygon line, shortcut G in your hand, and you can start all the way from the edge, and you can hold the command button if you're on the Mac, or control if you're on the PC, in order to create more of a curvy line. You could also create sharp angles and then come back later and with the curve tool create curves that represent the line better. Notice that I'm inside of the lace. Where you cut or where would you like to create this pattern, cut line, is completely up to you. When you come to the end, left double click and the cut line will synchronize. Then you can zoom out of it, come to the edit pattern tool, left click on that, then come back to your cut line, right click on it and cut and sew. That will separate the two patterns and you can see clearly where the line was cut. Now, if you don't want to have the lace pattern up here on the top pattern, you can come to transform graphic and then select the pattern pieces from here and delete them. Make sure that you are well separated between the two pattern pieces, otherwise you may select the pattern from the bottom. So I separated well the two pattern pieces. Now I'm coming just to the top. Again, come to edit or transform graphic and select the graphics that you don't want to see and delete them.
If you like this video, if you learned something new, please click the like button, subscribe to Bob and Talk. This will help the YouTube algorithm. I'll be able to do more videos, and I'll see you next time with more knowledge for you.
Now let's go to the 3D window. I'm going to open both of them. I'm going to close the object browser for now in property editor, and I'm going to click simulate to see what this looks like. So you can see right now that the lace is attached. I don't see the top part of the lace. Again, if you want to see the lace on top above the seam, that's fine. You can have that, and you can create some kind of a beautiful top stitch right there on top of it. I'm going to place back the lace pieces, and this is what it would look like with the lace on top of it. Keep in mind that these are in two separate pattern pieces. You can create some kind of top stitching right on top here on the seam for a true representation of how this lace was added. Now the next step for us will be to create a transparent background for the bottom if you don't want to see the bottom part of the fabric. In order to do that, I want to have different fabric designation for each pattern. It could be the same exact fabric, but I want to have one fabric for this pattern piece and a separate fabric here in the object browser for the other piece. That will give me the opportunity to work with that pattern piece and make it transparent. So what I'm going to do is I'll make sure that check which fabric is designated here by left double clicking or by left clicking. Then that's this fabric. I'm going to come to this fabric and just copy that, and I will change the name just to be sleeve lace, and that will let me know that this is the fabric that I need to change. Once that fabric is created, then come to this pattern piece and make sure that it's designated to this pattern piece, and now you can see that this one is assigned this fabric. You can see that because this turns blue, and for this pattern piece we have this fabric assigned, and we know that because this turns blue. Again, this one is this, and the bottom one is this one. And I've given it the correct name. That lets me know that this one is correct. Now that we have this fabric designated, let's click on that so we can get the property editor. And let's take a look at the material. Keep going down until you see opacity and bring the opacity down all the way to 0. So take a look in the 3D window as I'm bringing this down to 0. You can see how this here became transparent. You can click simulate, deselect the pattern, and you can see that this sleeve now has a true lace pattern. And because I created a transparent PNG file, this lace, as it's moving around and simulating around the arm, it gives me true transparency. Now you could very well stop here and be happy with the project and obviously copy and paste the sleeve on the other side. You can designate different fabrics here. You can change the color. You can change what this looks like. What I would suggest is that you have some kind of top stitching if that's how this lace would be attached. And also I would like this to be a little more textured. So let's see how we can do that. In order to add a little more depth, a little more texture to this lace, we can come to the library and utilize the other two files that I created here. Make sure that you're in the bottom pattern piece. That's this one here. So we have the property editor for that one. And then come all the way down to fabric and open the opacity map. And here for the opacity map, we're going to bring the opacity folder into here, or you can left click on this and select the file from your folder. I already have it up here, so I'm just going to left click, hold, and bring it all the way here to the opacity map and until you see it appear here. And we'll do the same thing with the displacement map. On the displacement map, you can open and you can bring the displacement map file right here and drop it on top until you see it appear. Let's close the library. And now we can simulate and see an even higher texture, even more contrast for our lace detail. And to see the texture better, you might want to come to the render window. So come to render and select the render so that the render window starts. Click within the window and you will see a render of the sleeve and what it looks like. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see better the texture. And you can see a lot more realistic texture of a lace once we've added the additional texture I am happy with my progress so far. I like the lace, I like the placement. I will change this to white if I don't want this color. The only thing I would like to do to finish off this particular project is I would like to add some top stitching. In reality, I would be stitching here along the edges with some kind of a top stitch. You can choose whatever you like. This could be just a regular straight stitch. It could be some kind of a zigzag. It could be some kind of a more complex top stitching. It could also be an overlock. So let's do that in the 2D window. In order to do that, let's work with the top stitch tools. They're right here. We have segment top stitch, we have free top stitch, seam line top stitch. This might actually be the tool that we choose because the seam line top stitch will place the top stitch on both sides or right in the middle of the seam that we have. So this might be our choice. Let's make sure that in the object browser we have the top stitch tab here open, and it gives us a default top stitch, which is just a regular straight machine top stitching. If that's all you want to apply, you can do that, but make sure that you look in the property editor and you're happy with the choices that are here. Under type, object or texture, object looks better, but it takes a lot more power and memory out of the computer. So for now, I'm going to choose texture. Offset is 1/16, so that tells you how much is it going to offset from the line, from the seam line that you choose. So it's going to offset off of the line that you want to place it about 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to choose a little more. I'll choose 1/8 of an inch, and you'll see the difference once we do. Here for the stitch count, if you just want one line of stitch or top stitch, you choose 1. If you want to add a more complex stitch, let's say you want a straight stitch and a zigzag next to it, you can choose 2, and then you'll have 2 different top stitch windows here or tabs, and you can choose specifications or properties for each one of them. So for now, I'm just going to choose, let's leave it with the 2. I'm going to work on the first one. So the shape, you can choose whatever you like here. I'm going to choose a single stitch. SPI is how many stitches per inch. The less you have, the bigger they are. The more stitches you have, the more little stitches you're going to have per inch. So that seems like too many to me. But if this is very fine lace, then maybe you want to have so many. So I'm going to choose 10 for now, see how that works. The thread thickness, you can choose whatever you like. If it's something like a wool garment, maybe you want bigger thickness, but we have a very fine garment here. So I'm going to leave it as that. And the type, this is something that you're actually going to see. I want something shiny, or maybe silk satin. I'm going to leave shiny for now. And the last thing I'm going to do here is, obviously you can put a lot more choices here. It's up to you. You can play around with this. Let's play with the color. Just so we can see this, I'm going to make this a bright color. And keep in mind, I haven't applied the stitching yet here, so we don't see that. Obviously, you have more choices here. I'm going to leave this at this just so you can see what this looks like. And again, I've only worked on one of the stitches here. Here, if you say use same specifications, it's going to create 2 of them. I'm just going to work with the one that I chose. So let's just make sure all my choices are here. They are. So let's go to the 2D window. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and I'm going to select the free top stitch. Might be easier to just open up the 2D window, and I want to apply this to the bottom area.
If you're enjoying this content, if you like these videos, leave a comment, ask me a question, like the videos, subscribe to Bobbin Talk for more content.
I'm gonna make sure that you have the free top stitch in your hand. You have the top stitch that you want. It's not a bad idea to rename this, so if you have multiple top stitches, you know which one is which. I'm gonna call this pink single needle top stitch. You can also name it things like left sleeve top stitch, right sleeve top stitch, or pocket top stitch. Again, I have this selected. I have the free top stitch in my hand, and I'm just gonna go over, left clicking and holding and going over the line that where I want to place the stitch. And when you're finished, click return and make sure that you double click at the end, simulate, and you're gonna see it. Now you're gonna see that here it placed the top stitch really far away, and these stitches are huge, so I don't want such big offset and I don't want such big top stitches. So let's select, come back to our line here, and I had 10 per inch, so I'm gonna choose a bigger number, more like 18, and you can see how the stitching here gets smaller. So let's go down to 20, and now we have much finer top stitch, and my offset is really far away. So let's take a look at the offset. This 1/8 of an inch is too big. Let's choose 1/16, and it brought it closer to my stitch line, and you can see it appearing there. If you don't want to see the color, obviously you can make this into a matching color. So I can make this into a light color, maybe like a cream or a white color. Now you can see that the top stitching is matching the background color. You can also see that this line is a little bit choppy when you get close to it. So you could come in here and create a smoother internal line. So you would come to the internal line, maybe come to the curve, and you can play with the line and make sure that your lines are much smoother. You can also add more point and smooth out this line a little bit more and just create overall more curvy line that is much smoother. If you want a more decorative stitch, we can come to the top stitch area and either change this top stitch to a different stitch. So let's take a look at that. Right now we have single needle stitch. So if you want to change the type of stitch that you have, come to specifications, shape, and here let's see if we can change this to overlock, for example. And you can see that now I have an overlock stitch. If you want to see it a little bit better, I'm just going to change the color for you so you can see it better, and you can see that at this point I have an overlock stitch. So this might be a more decorative way to create this. You can also make this a little bit smaller, change how many stitches there are, and play around with the type of top stitch that you have on the lace so this looks prettier and meets your expectations. Play around with the choices of the top stitch until you're happy with the final result, and enjoy the lace of your beautiful garment. Thank you for watching Bobbin Talk. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. I am happy to hear from you, and any suggestions, any comments, anything that you have.
If you're enjoying this content, if you like these videos, leave a comment, ask me a question, like the videos, subscribe to Bobbin Talk for more content. That will help the YouTube algorithm push me up a little bit, help me do more videos for you, and I'll see you next time.